Star Trek was way ahead of its time in a lot of regards, and even inspired our own technology. This video, I want to talk about 5 pieces of Star Trek technology we currently have, or if we have something comparable to it. Okay, starting with number 1, they're communicators. Communicators in the Star Trek universe are communication devices used for person-to-person and inter-ship communications. I feel like I just said communications a lot. Portable communicators were always taken by away teams and landing parties when able and allowed them to communicate with their ship while exploring and/or on a mission, especially as they could also serve as a homing transponder.
Kirk Enterprise.
Scott here, sir.
We're beaming up. Notify transporter room.
The flip-top design may look familiar to those of us old enough to remember flip phones.
Through this special TV offer, you can receive a Motorola flip phone with Cellular One service for just pennies a day.
That's because our own cellular flip phones were inspired by Star Trek, or at least the creator of the first cell phone has said.
There's Captain Kirk talking on his communicator. Talking with no dialing. That was not a fantasy to us, although to the rest of the world it was. But to me, that was an objective.
And yes, we can communicate with each other with our cell phones, and they can also serve as a homing beacon in a similar way to Star Trek's version. Though later their communication devices turned into comm badges, which some companies are actually already working on. Vocera has a device that you can pin to your shirt and people can communicate with you. How crazy is that? Currently, it's being used in hospitals to help with communication, and we can expect tinier and tinier versions of this as time goes on. I am so jazzed about this. Okay, let's move on to number 2, Hypo Spray. So Hypo Spray is a medical device in the Star Trek universe that injects liquids into a body without a needle, using a non-invasive transport mechanism of compressed air to transfer the injectant. Not only did this needle-free transfer help reduce chances of infection, but also reduce pain at the injection site. And also probably a relief to people that fear needles. While we have a few devices similar to this in our own world, by far the coolest is the MIT injector. This jet injection device delivers a rapid high-pressure stream of medicine, as thin as a strand of hair, through the skin in adjustable dosages, causing little to no pain. MIT, those of us that have immune diseases and constantly are getting poked, thank you. Let's go to number 3, Universal Translator. This device was created to decipher alien languages to the native language of the user. On the Star Trek universe's Earth, the Universal Translator was invented shortly before 2151, and could more or less translate alien languages, though a skilled linguist was still needed as the kinks were being worked out in the device.
We use a device called the Universal Translator. It's like an alien dictionary with hundreds of languages programmed into it, and it can learn new languages very quickly, but it doesn't always work. And when that happens, it's up to me to try to translate.
We now have that technology, and it is way before 2151, so fucking take that, Star Trek. In fact, we have an app for that. Through our phones, we can now translate dozens of Earth languages nearly instantaneously. Downside, we don't have all of our Earth languages yet, but we're getting there, and if we keep progressing, we absolutely will. Oh, and we also don't have any alien languages in that app because we haven't met any aliens yet. Supposedly. But if we had, I'm sure we would already have an app for their language or languages. Okay, number 4. Earpiece. The Star Trek earpiece, a wireless receiver device, was called many different things in the episode scripts of Star Trek. Sometimes it was called an ear receiver, sometimes it was called an earpiece device, other times it was called a Feinberg. In the Star Trek universe, it was primarily used by communication officers, such as Uhura, to monitor external and internal communications, and by science officers and navigators during the 22nd and 23rd centuries to receive and give information. This device evolved over the different Star Trek series from a more clunky device that needed to be held to the ear to ones that would stay on their own. This technology may sound or look familiar because it's a Bluetooth device. We have the same benefits as this universe's earpiece, except our devices look a lot cooler. At least to me. a small tangent. I don't know how old you have to be to remember this, but do you remember when we initially got those earpieces and people used to look crazy in public just talking to themselves because we weren't used to it yet? That took a while to get used to. There were quite a few times I remember people like looking at someone like, what the fuck? And then they'd turn and you'd see the earpiece and you'd be like, oh, you're not crazy. As far as we can tell. All right, let's end on number 5. Personal access data devices. These handheld computer interfaces had large touchscreen displays with minimalistic interface, usually only 1 or 2 buttons. They served many functions, including accessing library computer systems, compiling diagnostic reports, logging crew manifests, and so on. But guess what? Those slackers didn't invent that until the 22nd century. We have those assholes beat. Tablets are a growing part of most people's lives in developed countries, and we can do pretty much anything on our tablets they could do. And there's a ton more technology in Star Trek that we have, to a certain degree. 3D printers, CAT scans, and talking computers, to just name a few. But what is your favorite piece of Star Trek technology we now have? Let me know in the comment section down below. But actually write what your favorite Star Trek technology was. Just don't put like word question marks that people tend to do when something's not on a list that they think should be there. Because then I always assume you're like asking me a question, like do I approve of what you wrote? It just looks weird when you put a bunch of question marks after saying, like at my Marvel video, like top 5 Grimace realities, people will put like Cancerverse question marks, and I'm always like, are you asking permission to think that? Just say, hey, I think Cancerverse would be included. You know, be strong in what you believe. Don't ask me for permission, because that's how I interpret it.